of what's going on. Maybe they aren't directly impacted. Maybe they are, there's always going to be the person that's like, I can walk across the street with the cars coming. I won't get hit by a car until they get hit by a car. Or if they don't, then they just keep going in that framework of being invincible. The one thing I would say is, and this is coming from a person who I like to make a lot of things jokes because I find a lot of things painful. And the way I process them is by turning them into jokes so that I can take them in and then sit down in my own space, in my own time, and in my own way, really deal with the feelings that surround that. Even be careful doing that in public, right? Like I have friends and colleagues and clients who are really affected by this. And in the past, I would have tried to, quote, lighten the mood and let, take a more positive approach. But I think dealing with this when people are looking at themselves, their families, and their livelihood, like this is an all-encompassing, overreaching situation that's happening, which there seems like there is no escape. Like this morning, I could have gone to the gym in New York. This afternoon, I cannot. There's always something happening and something going on that just try to have a little empathy for your neighbor and understand that it may not be a big deal for you, but it might be a big deal for your neighbor. And if your neighbor is expressing that, don't dismiss it. Because people in this social distancing, I think it's even more important for us to feel closer. And we can use all of these amazing tools we have to bring us closer and just show a little empathy. Excuse me. Here I am coughing. This is why I'm home. This is why I'm home.
You see what I'm saying?
This is why I'm keeping my social. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I got a little choked up there because I just think it says we have the opportunity to be so good to each other right now. And I see this as an opportunity for us to be a little bit of what we should be when there's not a pandemic. And I just hope people find that.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm getting all emotional over here. My apologies.
I know. It's okay. It's okay. So I want to unpack a couple things. So one, you started coughing, and I immediately thought 20 days ago, for sure 60 days ago, if you had coughed, I would have not thought anything about it. I probably would have made a joke like, you sipping too strong over there, Tomas? Like, what's going on? Something, what's in your throat? But now we're in a context where, at least for me, and I don't think my experience is singular, in that when you cough, my first thought is he okay? Like, oh my God. And so that to me is the power of the anxiety that's swirling and the fear.
Let's take that but let's take that to the next level. My first thought is, oh my God, I did a show this Saturday. Did I touch someone? Did I touch something? Would I do this? Was it the drink I had, the bottled water I had? Did I like that kind of thing? And then by extension, oh my goodness, did I give this to my life partner? Is he okay? Is he safe? Have I touched anyone? So in that moment, that's why I said, give me a moment here, because all of that happened. And I'm not a person who often thinks like that. I always, practice blue sky thinking. But I got to be honest, my skies are a little gray nowadays. And I'm trying to balance that.
They are. So I think part of what I think I'm going to unfortunately get political for a second. And I think for me, what has contributed to my existing concerns here is that I don't have a lot of confidence in the way our country is managing this pandemic.
Girl,
I see
what
a
did
lot
that
of
girl just
mayors.
say, girl?
I'm like, we do be deep, so we keep it 100 over 100.
Yes.
I hear mayors doing some really important, proactive. I don't want to use the word extreme because I think they're appropriately severe. I'll use that, appropriately severe measures. I hear governors enacting resources, aid, funneling resources and the ways to help get testing done, to support small businesses, to support the elderly, to support our wage earners, right? But I haven't heard anything about what's happening on the federal level, right? The latest I heard is there's this bill that got pushed through the House, but it's still sitting in the Senate. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe I need to check my New York Times app and see if that has changed in the past couple hours. I don't hear anything about there being systematic nationwide testing. And I don't hear anything about what we're doing at the airports themselves while we're restricting travel, right? So to me, and then the other thing here is like there's still...
I'm sorry, I just got to say, airports, Chicago, O'Hare, yesterday, people elbow to elbow, breath all up on each other because they told all these people you have to come back. All these people flew back at the same time, and then they were giving the excuse, we didn't anticipate this. How can you not anticipate when you have the damn schedule of airplanes coming into your facility? Stop the BS. Manage. Like, just freaking manage.
And so I know that is a big part of, one, why I'm remaining more vigilant, and two, why my anxiety around it hasn't really receded, and three, like, frankly, my frustration and irritation with people. Like, why are we just all out in these streets? Like, is nothing happening when all I hear everywhere is flatten the curve. We got to flatten the curve. We have to flatten the curve, and social distancing. And so I want us to be a little bit more, along with your recommendations or conversation around being more empathic. I want us to be more compassionate, but I really want us to start thinking more collectively. But I really think that is why some of these other countries have us beat.
Right. And let's take this a step further. Not only think more collectively, but think more critically about not just, and here's the thing I'm going to say. People have problems with social distancing. They think it's BS. You know, we went from 2 weeks ago, it's a hoax to now there's a federal emergency. And I'm not going to get political because I don't believe in just blaming things on one person. The reality is our system of government has been broken for a very long time. The problem is when you have a pot that's been broken and you just keep putting water in it, eventually you're going to get leaks on your stove. People, these are the leaks on the stove that's happening right now. We are seeing that we need to really address some things in our system. Unfortunately, this is not the time to do that. Right? So we do have to think critically about worst case scenarios and what we need collectively to put in place to avoid having this kind of situation in the future. But in the present, what we need to be doing right now is understanding that social distancing is social responsibility. And it's not just responsibility to yourself, because I've heard people say things like, well, I don't need to worry about it. So I'm going to go head out and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But what you're not understanding is it's not about you, cheese, right? It's not about you. It's about what you could do to others without even realizing that you're doing it. So it's really, really important to keep that in mind. If you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your loved ones, for your neighbors, for your coworkers, your friends, your colleagues. We're really blessed here to have Governor Cuomo. I have to just give him a shout out because that man has been on it every single day. He is on that television being very clear and helping us to know this is where we are. This is a fluid situation. This is what's happening today. This is what I'm asking the federal government to do. I've been asking the federal government to do it. Please, I hope they do it, but I can't wait for them to do it. So this is what I'm doing, right? What he's doing now is he's taking empty spaces that can be converted into hospitals and utilizing them and finding different beds, because he's like, we cannot wait for the federal government to provide us with any resources or support. And we as a state, he said, no state can afford to build a hospital the way China built that hospital over a weekend. We can't do that here. It's just not financially possible. So these are the things we're doing. We're releasing some of the capacity rules for hospitals. We're going to probably be looking at all hospitals. Public is already done. Private hospitals, we're going to probably be telling you we're going to remove those elective surgeries so that we can free up those beds. That's 25 to 30% capacity there. He's very, very clear in how he's doing this. And he's dealing with it as worst case scenario, which for me, it actually isn't worst case scenario here in New York, but it could be overnight. Because you wake up the next morning and there's 20 new people who have it, and you say, well, where's that coming from? Right? So I think we all need to keep that part in mind, that when they're saying social distancing and so forth, no one's trying to take away your 1 through 10 amendment rights. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not about that. No one is trying to regulate you. This isn't big government trying to tell you what you to do. This is just you taking care of yourself and others. Because the other reality is it may not kill you, but it could make you sick. And if there's no hospital for you to get to, then you're on your own. And that's a problem as well.
So, yeah, I think we have to, I do wonder how well people are informed that you could be a carrier and be asymptomatic, right? That you could have mild symptoms and still infect others.
I don't think people know that.
Just because the outcome may not, just because the outcome is not death for you or those in your household doesn't mean that you're still not a variable in the bigger picture. And that's why I think this idea around like our capacity to even think collectively as Americans is a struggle. So about 3 weeks ago, I was having dinner with some friends, and I think it was right after Italy had shut everything down. And, we were talking about, well, what do you think would happen if that would happen here? And I said, that's the part that fuels my anxieties, because I don't trust Americans to be able to forfeit our individual rights and our, I think oftentimes misguided fervor for freedom to do the right thing, right? And I don't trust people to necessarily think about others in that way. And that's why I think it does have to come from some top-down sort of dictates to help people do the right thing, because people are still not doing the right thing. There's a local restaurant here. I hate to kind of put them on blast by name, but there's a local restaurant here that is very hot and trending, and there's usually like several hours long line for wait, and they were like busy this weekend. That's reckless. That's reckless, right?
It is.
That we don't need that sort of approach to guide us right now.
Right.
We really need the opposite. And so then on the other side, I think I also want to make sure that we spend some time talking about. I keep seeing all of these kind of tweets and memes about this is introverts. Time they've been waiting to shine by having to be in and kind of be isolated.
And what's your point with that? And you know what I mean? And let us take our time. We're gonna take our time and shine.
Listen, this is your moment to rise.
Let me take my moment.
Introverts rise up.
Let me take my moment and post it up on Instagram.
So,
hashtag social distancing. Show chronic social distancing hashtag.
Chronic is not a thing. Chronic is not a thing, friend. But even in that, to remember, like, fundamentally humans, we are social creatures.
Right.
We are. We don't do well in isolation. That is why isolation is still a severe punishment, even within the prison system, right? So when you're thinking about either self-quarantining or being quarantined or just engaging in social distance in this stretch, and the CDC, right, is pushing recently for outward of 8 weeks, right? So this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
This isn't like a, and it's sad, but I think that an unfortunate byproduct of a lot of these kind of weather events